Good morning, everyone. I'd like to open this Polk County Board of Commissioners meeting today. It's March 1st, 2022. All commissioners are present. There's extra agendas on the back table. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First up, we have Polk County Clerk Val Unger. Woo-hoo.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Monday, March. It sunk right down. It's been a while since I've been here. I think that I was supposed to come around November of 2020 and I was busy. And so I didn't come, and then I didn't get rescheduled for some reason. So I'm back on the rotation. So good to see you all. So I have a staff of 3, myself and 2 others. And primarily we handle recording, marriage licenses, BOC and elections. And so I've outlined for recording the number of documents we recorded over the last 5 years. Last year was a busy year. We had a lot of sales, a lot of refinancing. And so we had a lot of documents, and I checked so far this year and we're a little behind where we were probably in 2020. So we've slowed down a little bit, but still relatively busy. Kim is our recorder. She does an awesome job. Most counties our size probably have 3 recorders. She works from home 2 days a week and does the e-recording. I would say probably maybe 65–70% of our recordings now come electronically. And so she's able to do all that remotely, along with indexing the documents that have been recorded and then verifying the documents. We're about 6 months behind on the proofreading. So she's been working on that too. Our marriage licenses, our numbers are up a little bit from last 2021. And I think that probably a couple of reasons. There were a lot of people that put off weddings that had planned to be married in 2020 and even into 2021, the early, and they finally just said, we gotta get this done. So we issued quite a few. We also learned that Yamhill County had stopped issuing periodically. We'd get calls and they'd say, we're getting married, blah, blah, blah. And they have only appointments and we need to get it within the next 3 days. And so we'd say, well, come on over. Some of the bigger counties around Portland and Multnomah, Washington, Clackamas, some of them were only issuing remotely or by appointment. And so some people were coming down from even up there to get their marriage licenses. So we continued to issue licenses all through 2021, and that's that. BOPTA is the Board of Property Tax Appeals. It comes around once a year. So after your tax statement is mailed out, if you look at it and you think your value is too high, then you can appeal that to this board. Years past, many years past, decades past, we used to get hundreds of appeals. The last few years, we've only usually get a handful. So this year, I think there were 8 or something. I don't know, not too many. It's becoming harder and harder to train our members, not only to get members, but to train our members. The Department of Revenue is in charge of that training. They used something called Workday this last time, which was very hard for people to log into and to complete the training. The clerks are very aware of this and have made their, the issues known to the Department of Revenue. We had a clerks conference earlier in the month, and the clerks would absolutely be on board with eliminating BOPTA at the county level and just having all the appeals go straight to the state magistrate or the state level. So that's how frustrated kind of we are at that point. It used to be that if we had a realtor that served on the board, that they could get some continuing credits for serving on the board. The DOR took that away a couple of years ago. And so now it's hard to get, people who actually know what the values are because, there's some time commitment in doing that. We don't pay our members. It's optional to pay them. And we don't pay our members. And so there's really no reason for people to serve on the board. And then on to elections. So I checked yesterday and I said we have 62,000 voters. I think we're 24 shy of that, but close enough. So compared to January of 2016, we had 43,618. So I didn't figure out what that increase was, but it's a big increase. And that is primarily due to the motor voter law. So motor voter went into effect January 2016. And at that time, people were automatically registered when they went into a DMV office. The way that works is they go into the record and then that information is sent to the Secretary of State's office and they have a database with all the voters in the state. And so if they see that this is a new record, then that triggers a letter to be sent to the applicant. At that time, the applicant can choose to opt out. If they don't want to be registered, they can mark a box if they don't want to be, or they can choose a party because they're automatically put on as a non-affiliated voter. And so if they don't respond to the notice, then we get that record after 30 days and they would go on to, we get it electronically and they would go on to the rolls as a non-affiliated voter. So because of that process, our voter rolls have increased quite a bit. And then you can see also that the registration has changed quite a bit. So in 2016, January, I showed what the registrations were for Democrats and Republicans and non-affiliated voters compared to now. So, about 2,500 to 3,000 increase for the Democrats and Republicans, but the non-affiliated voters have doubled. And that's all because of motor voter.
Just a quick question. Have you seen voting rates increase as well, or has that gone down?
So there was a pretty, people surmised that, because people were forced to be registered, that they probably wouldn't vote, but our voter outcome and percentage of people voting has stayed pretty high, pretty comparable to what it was before motor voter.
Grossing more voters.
Pardon me?
More people are voting.
More people are voting, yes, because we have more numbers, but even the people who didn't, initiate that on their own are still voting. So, yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And then, do you have any other questions about the registration? So what's new? Well, redistricting is complete. Every 10 years, we're tasked with the job of changing our precincts and our boundaries to reflect the redistricting and the congressional and Senate representative districts. So on the bottom of the second page is our new chart that shows all the precincts and then the congressional rep and Senate districts. I did a little brief summary down below of what those changes were. The biggest change was that all of Polk County was in the 5th congressional district, and now we're all in the 6th congressional district. And then all of the Falls City, which is an outlying area, precinct 166, and then precinct 110, they both changed their Senate and rep districts from 10 and 5 to 24 and 12. So those people were all notified by receiving a new card in the mail, a voter notification card telling them of that change. And then up on the northern end of the county, there were some changes to the House District 24. And so people in 102 and 106, if we adjusted their precincts, they were notified of that. And then there were some smaller changes around outside of Monmouth and Independence and West Salem. And so there were a few changes there. And then City of Salem, at one time, all of City of Salem was in Ward 8 for their city council. And probably I don't know, 8 years ago, they decided that Ward 8 was too large. And so they made part of West Salem Ward 1. And so I had to create a precinct just for Ward 1. And so they've decided, the most recent change was that Ward 1 grew a little bit. So I did have to do a little adjusting to some of the West Salem precincts to put them into Ward 1. So those were the major changes. I could not have done it without Eric, the GIS guy. He got me the information. I did it all by hand. There's a kind of a process you can do using OCVR and the GIS system. If I had more changes, I probably would have done that. Changing it from the 5th to the 6th was just a push of a button. That was easy. Adjusting the precincts is a little more tedious, but I did them one address at a time. So it took a little bit of time, but got it done and got the people notified. So I'm thankful for Eric for getting me that information. And we do have new maps now. They're posted to our website. We have them available in our office and they're very beautiful. Another new thing is this May election will be the first election where postmarks count. So the Legislative Assembly passed a law that said that you don't have to have your ballot in by 8 o'clock, that we can accept them if they're postmarked by the election day. So the problematic part about that is, most of the post offices, local post offices don't put postmarks on mail up until midnight of that day. So we're going to try to educate people to get their ballot in by the pickup of wherever they're dropping that off. So like at Dallas, 4:15 is the last time you can drop your ballot off on election day to get it postmarked that day. You can leave them in a drop box until 8 p.m. But if you drop it off at 5 o'clock, it's going to go to Portland and it's not going to get postmarked on election day. So that's going to be a challenge to educate people to get it in early enough so that it's postmarked so we can count it. Another law that was passed it was actually clarified, I believe, in the legislative session, House Bill 5006, and had a few things in it, but one of them was that the elimination of the secrecy envelopes. So as you've received your ballot packet in the past, you get your ballot, and then you have it used to be an envelope, then we've morphed it into a sleeve, and now we're eliminating it. So you're only going to get your ballot, your return envelope, and the envelope it came in. On the envelope that you return your ballot in, we've added a secrecy weave inside of it so that you can't hold it up and see what's inside there. We also are changing how we process the ballots as far as having them face down on the table so you don't see the names of the voter, and extracting all the envelopes from the batch before we do anything with those envelopes, and then set them aside and then begin opening the envelopes. It used to be kind of you'd pull it out, kind of an assembly line, and people would be opening it up while they were still being extracted. So we're going to fine tune some of those. So just to ensure the secrecy of the ballot itself, we had to have this all approved by the Secretary of State's office. There's quite a few counties that opted to eliminate the sleeve. The sleeve was problematic and it was expensive. So hopefully the cost will be less. They will be less, and it'll be faster to not have to worry with the sleeve. But sometimes people would only put the sleeve in and they wouldn't put the ballot in. And most of the time the board would catch that, but sometimes they didn't. And so then we'd be off on the count. Sometimes there's other things that we put in with the ballot, and they put that in instead of the ballot inside the sleeve. And so sometimes that wasn't caught. So hopefully this will be an envelope and a ballot. And so there shouldn't be any reason to have any be off on the count at all. So we'll see how it goes. If the people hate it, if I hate it, then we'll go back to sleeves, but we're going to give it a try. So that's new.
Okay, so let's talk about that one then. So
Okay.
I haven't read House Bill 5006, but so are you saying that was permissive?
In the
It
past,
was your discretion to do that?
yes, and in the past, it was, it didn't say that they were mandatory, it just said that the ballot needed to be kept secret or something, and so like Marion County had toyed around with a secrecy thing that they had that was connected to their envelope at one time. All this had to be kind of approved, and theirs was, but then they went back to the sleeve. But yes, it's totally at the discretion of each county clerk. And so, like I said, quite a few of them applied and got the authority to do so. A few decided not to do it, so.
And you think this is going to eliminate steps and make it more efficient?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes,
Even though, I mean, again, your primary goal when you're opening is you got to have all of your folks understand you can't have signatures available for them to see with the ballot. So
Yep.
does it make it?
it was,
I'm asking these things because I've read some protest already about this, so I don't know that I care one way or the other. I'm just curious about it, that we talk it out so that folks can understand.
right.
The-
So one of the procedures is that when they're extracting the ballot from the envelope, that the envelopes are always going to be so that the signature and the label of who it was sent to is not going to be viewable. So it'll be the way they're placed on the table, that will be face down. And then you're just extracting it out of an envelope. We even removed the return where you can put a sticker or your name for a return address. Since postage is paid, they're not going to go back to the person anyway. They would go to us. And so we eliminated that. So there shouldn't even be information up in the corner. The people that are taking these out do it so quickly, there's no time to really look and, see. So it really isn't going to be much different at all than what we did before, except the process will be different as far as how the envelopes are arranged, and that we won't open up any of the ballots until they're all extracted from the envelopes and the envelopes are set aside.
And the signature verification is
That's done
unchanged.
prior. Yeah, that's done prior to that.
Okay.
Yeah, no change to that.
Can
And
you
we-
just, because we're on the record, I
Yes.
want to ask if you can just help educate people that might be paying attention here and watching this.
Mhm.
What does that signature verification process look like?
So in Polk County, the signature verification is all manual. In some counties, they have machines that check those signatures and then kick out the ones that they don't see as a match. In Polk County, we don't have any of that equipment. So when the ballot comes, there's usually a small batch of ballots. And so there's above the name and address, there's a barcode. And so we have barcode readers that just scans that barcode. It brings up the signature on the screen, and you just look at the two. If it matches, yay. If it doesn't, then you unaccept it, set it aside. And so you just go through, and it's a quick process. I say, if you have to look at it and stare at it and try to determine if it's a match, set it aside. And then that comes to me. The ones that come to me are the ones that didn't pass the first stage of the verification. And then I'll look back at past signatures. And if I find something, sometimes DMV signatures are different than a written signature on a card. These days, people tend to have a signature on record, but they print their signature. And so if they don't match, then I have to reject that. Anyway, I go through the process of looking at it a second time, and then I make the determination to either accept the signature or to reject it. And if I reject it, then I send them a letter and tell them that they have until 10 days after the election to remedy it.
Can you give us an idea of roughly how many of those?
A
that
very small fraction of a percent. Yes.
Again, all of that, I'm asking these questions just to help
That's great.
folks understand.
No,
We probably have the tightest system there is on the planet right here in Polk County. And again, thanks to all that you do. And it's always better for us to talk out some of the reasons why
absolutely.
you're doing some of these things so folks can understand, look, it's your system is more safe and secure now than it's ever been, looking for ways to improve efficiency, not be trapped in the past. So thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. We are going to have a new 24-hour box out at Grand Ronde. We've had problems. That was always kind of an area that we didn't have any place for people to deposit their ballots. And so when they called, we'd have to say, well, you can take it to Willamina or you can take it to Sheridan. So a few years ago, we did find a location to have a drop box in Grand Ronde, but then COVID came and their building was closed. And so there were probably at least 2 elections in 2020 that was not an option for people. It's not a heavily used box, but it's still an underserved area that, you know, needs to have a box. And so we were able to purchase one of the, just like out front here, one of the little solid boxes. And so that's in the process of being installed out at Grand Ronde. So they'll have a 24-hour box to deposit the ballots. So that will be new this election.
And who picks those up? What's the transport? I'm sorry.
That's
I'm sorry.
good.
What's the transport process for that box?
So so for that one, we'll unlock the box. It has a kind of a locked bag that fits inside of it. And so it'll be unlocked before the ballots are sent out. And then on election night, that one will be unlocked and then the bag will be extracted and then an empty bag will be put in. And then that bag will be brought back to us. I always have people who I deputize to bring those ballots to us. Most of them we do, you know, depending on the election, sometimes once a day, sometimes every other day, sometimes a couple of times a week. That one may not get pulled until just election night because we really don't get very many ballots out there. But that's how that is. And then it's brought to us and then opened up and.
How many deputies do you have to do that?
Pardon me?
How many people do you have involved that you've deputized? Ballot boxes throughout the county?
I have one person who opens them all up and sets them all out, but then probably maybe 4 people that pick them up on election night.
Yeah, so what do you mean goes out and sets them all out?
So like that box will need to be unlocked. So, and then the other locations, most of them are the old ballot boxes that we have, the polls. And so he goes and distributes those to the other polling places and they're cabled to a stationary object. And so he gets those all in place prior to the ballots being mailed out. So he gets them all set up and in place. Anything else?
Good, quick question, unless you,
Yes.
why don't you finish and then I'll, because you may cover it. Are you finished? with your
I'm done with drop boxes, so if you.
No, we can move on.
Oh, okay.
I'm
I
good.
mean, if you have a question about it, that's fine. But I was just gonna,
I do not about Dropbox.
okay. So in this past legislative session, there was some money set aside for modernization. It was over $2 million. And so the state has been in correspondence with the clerk to see what the needs are as far as equipment or anything that we need to modernize our offices for elections. We had a conference, as I said earlier, in February. And it kind of came to light that this money might be tied to ranked choice voting. So they are setting aside some money for that there's a big push to go to that. Some clerks said that if the money that this was being offered was tied to ranked choice voting, that they didn't want any of the money because clerks are, I'd say, unanimously opposed to it. They're trying to get the needs of, there's still, I think, one county in the state that needs updated voter tabulation equipment. So I think that's a priority. And then they're going to, once the money is dispersed for the top needs, then they're going to provide money for divvy it up among the other counties. So we might have some money coming. I haven't decided what our needs really are because I think we have a solid system right now. I did talk to Greg briefly about this, and the one thing that I did think of was, maybe some additional 24-hour drop boxes. They just seem to you don't have to, they have better access because they're open 24 hours a day. So we'll see about that, but I don't need a new ballot tabulator. I'm not big on the sorters or the signature machines, so I'll have to think more about that, so just a heads up about that. And then we have had a lot of lack of trust and a lot of unrest among the voters. There's been a lot of recalls. So far, we have avoided any of our districts being recalled, but there's been a lot of school districts around the state, commissioners and fire districts, you name it. Public records requests, we just have been inundated with different things that they're asking for. A lot of the data that they're asking for, we didn't even know existed, different logs and things. We try to provide whatever we can to people that want them. We even made our ballot images from November of 2020 available for $30. We put them on a thumb drive, and we've sold 3 of those to people. But it's been kind of interesting on, what people are asking for still from November of 2020 even. Our ballot tabulator is always under scrutiny. People think it can be remotely manipulated, which it can't. It's not even hooked up. It's plugged into the wall, but it's not hooked up to any internet or anything like that. There's been talk that we have too many registered voters, that we have more registered voters than people in our county that are of voting age. And every day, we work on our voter rolls. We are constantly getting information on people's addresses through DMV updates, through the Postal Service updates. Oregon is one of 31 states that are a member of the ERIC, E-R-I-C database, where they go through all different, they compare different state databases and DMV databases, and they give us updates for addresses or tell us if people have moved out. After every election, we mail the ballots out. They're not forwardable. So if the person isn't living there, they return those ballots back. We get trays of ballots back after the election. We go through all of those and we inactivate people or update addresses. So it's a continuous, people are very on the move. I don't know another word for it, but they're just moving all the time. And so it is hard to keep up with them, but we strive to do that in every way possible. But the main reason why our our registration is high is because of the motor voter, because we just get so many registrations that way. The closed primary system causes a lot of concern for people because they get ballots and then they're not happy with the ballot that they received. In Oregon, it's a closed primary, so you only get a ballot depending on the party that you're registered with. And so we try to educate people about that, but some people think they should have a different ballot, even though we have no record of them ever being a member of that party. So anyway, those are just a few of the things that we deal with that is, people are frustrated with. And I wrote a little paragraph there about, we're doing our best. We're continuing to do a job that we've always done to provide safe and secure elections, even though it's come under fire lately. This morning I woke up and I grabbed a cup of coffee like I do every morning, went and sat in my chair and Googled Wordle. And I played Wordle. Didn't like the word today.
It was tough.
It was a tough word, but I did get it in 4 tries. And then I noticed I had a message, and it wasn't from a Facebook friend, but it was in my messenger. So I opened it up and I want to read it to you. It says, "You are just as corrupt as Shemia. Rule of thumb that holds true. Your team can win some of the time. It can even win most of the time. But when it wins all of the time, you have to question the cheating. If you see that, you are part of the corruption. That's what I have to deal with all the time. So, any more questions?
I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of the work you and your office does. And I know this lack of trust, the disinformation out in the internet world has put tremendous pressure on clerks' offices across the country. And it's a threat to our democracy, bottom line. And I just want to thank you for educating people as best you can and offer my help or our help to help get the correct information out about your process, about the integrity of it. We did hire a communications officer to help with that. I don't know if that would be of value to your office, but
I've thought of a few things that I might have to, ask her about. Somebody suggested a video that kind of showed how the process works. And so maybe she can help even, create that or something. So.
given I think this is a critical source of disinformation right now in the country and in the county, and I would love to prioritize Brittany's work with Val's office in other areas where there's clear opportunities for education, because it is affecting you, it's affecting lots of people, and we need to support you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate that.
I have several questions, but first I will note, thank you for sharing that very tragic statement by, I'm hoping, a citizen of our own,
No,
because
it was somebody who doesn't know me.
Yeah.
No, I looked her up. She's in Washington County.
that's even more horrible. So yeah, very sad that you deal with that, and I would feel the same way that you do if I was receiving that. We do receive similar things, but not quite that nasty. But that's unfortunate, and so I will defend you to the ends of the earth, because I know what your integrity is, and I believe in everything that you do, and I do believe that you represent your values represent all of us here. So to hell with that person. Sorry. Anyway, I do have,
Portal of the day.
yeah, yes. I do have a couple of
That
questions.
started my day.
Yes, yes. Well, that's what you get for picking up the phone. Enjoy the coffee, look out the window, wait for hummingbirds. That's what I would get told. So I do have a couple of questions. First of all, the redistricting question, redistricting statement, you say it's complete. I understand that there was some court challenge or potential court challenge, and I've never asked Morgan this specifically if he even knows, but is it settled?
Yes,
Okay.
that was all passed.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a timeline and there were some, but that all.
So for me, this goes right to a challenge I have with a couple of potential candidates for CD6 that don't live in the district, who've said they're waiting for a court settlement or court decision before they determine whether they're going to move into the district. So.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, well, I won't pester you with that on the record.
But I think there'd be some residency requirements too.
You would think that, but they've said they were waiting for the court decision, then they'll determine whether they move into the district, but they're campaigning actively right now.
State issue.
Yeah, no question. So I want to ask you about the BOPTA and legislation to eliminate BOPTA. And I understand the technicalities and some of the challenges there. Certainly I've participated in it. I'm confident, like you would be, and Valerie in the back of the room would be, as concerned about transparency and opportunity for people to be able to engage their local government, who actually is the first line of where they are taxed from. How would that work if we were to move something to Department of Revenue? Does that make it more challenging for our citizens to actually have a voice or challenge what happens in their local government?
Well, I'm sure it would. I mean, just distance would be one thing unless it was all done by paper or electronically. But I'm not saying that anything has been proposed. The clerks are not proposing anything. I said we would support legislation. So
Gotcha.
yeah, there probably isn't anything that is going to be, but we're just frustrated.
Okay. Okay, well, you brought it up, so thought I'd ask, so I support reviewing it, of course, as well. And then finally, because ranked choice voting has become a buzzword these days, can you tell me, would you be willing to share your views or the collective views on it? I'm opposed to it as well, but for probably uneducated reasons. And I'd like to have better educated reasons if you'd be willing.
Sure. And I did not mention that this tally system that we have now, ES&S, is, I believe, the only system in the state currently that can handle ranked choice voting. It would need a software upgrade, but Benton County has ES&S and they have it for, I think, a county-wide race. They already ran one election, but the person got the majority of the vote on the first run, so they didn't have to go to the second, third, wiping out the last and all that. It's confusing. Number one, you know, it takes a little bit. I mean, I have to hear it a few times to even really fully understand, and there's variations of it. So I think it would be confusing to the voters. You know, we're not trusted now that we can't count one oval, let alone we have 3 choices and ovals all over this race, you know? I mean, and we're throwing out the one that gets the least amount of votes if somebody doesn't, I mean, it just, to me, it just is totally not one person, one vote type of a, you know, system that our whole election is based on. So, and then how would you do a recount? How would you do a shared district? So say it's a legislative district that's in 3 different counties and all of those, you know, voters in those 3 different counties, rank them. You know, how do you do a recount to come out with, you know, the correct number? I mean, to me, I don't understand it totally either, but it just seems problematic and confusing. And I don't want to have to count something that I don't fully trust or understand.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Now, first off, are they trying to eliminate Bobka because you got the new chair this year and who you selected?
No.
Meetings last room.
I mean, how honest you want her to be.
And you rock the training, so.
Training was challenging. So, and we worked with Workplace or Workday,
Yeah.
LSWAP. So I had an unfair advantage there and it was very.
There were some
difficult.
counties that said they lost members because they could not figure it out.
Yeah,
They could not figure the training out. So they said, heck with this, and they walked away from it.
It's a nightmare. So, and then second off, how many years have you been doing this?
Well, I started in the clerk's office in 1989 as a temp. And I went to elections in 1993 elections.
So thank you for all those years of service.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And when you get those emails and stuff, when we were selecting our Jeremy's position, or actually, no, it was the representatives, Neerman's. Probably 25% of the emails we received was people from all over the state, completely out of this region. And the negative views that were sent were amazing how people can put that in writing. And they're frustrated because the lack of trust, because they believe what they read, they don't get involved to find out the facts. That's one thing I hope that the public someday will find the few minutes to do a little bit of reading, a little bit of digging to find out exactly what's going on. And that's just for everybody that's listening. Their thoughts and idealisms that they're sharing are so inaccurate. That is amazing. And then other people read it and they take it as gospel because they read it on the intranet. Just because it's a post or something like that is not a fact. So hopefully that will go on for years. And I tell everybody, we have the greatest system in place in Polk County when it comes to our elections. The scrutiny that goes through there. And how many people run your counter? Feed through that, just the 2 of you? There's only 2?
Well, there's 3 total in the office, so, but then we bring in, you know, temporary help to help process the ballots and check signatures.
But as far as running through the counting machine itself,
Oh, yeah. Oh, the counting machine. Yeah. It's mostly just Greg and I.
so that does bring up a question or two, but
With a camera right over the top of
We
it.
know he can count though.
but that's what I just want to point out for those listening is there's such a few amount of people that actually handle these ballots. And when you're running the counters, there's 2. Nobody else can even touch it. So hopefully everybody, and the tours you give I've had a couple of people mention me that they went up and through the tour and they have no questions whatsoever. So I thoroughly support your idea of creating a video that we can post on the Polk County website, especially with elections coming right now. I think that's something we should put as a priority and get that on our website. So we can answer, you have questions of elections and we get on the front page, some kind of way to highlight it so people can watch it. I think would help us immensely, but you're valued. Thank you for your time. Your staff's amazing. Looking forward to working with you. And seeing what else I can learn. It's crazy what you can teach an old dog. So with that all said, thank you very much for coming down. This was great.
All right.
Hey, do you mind if I add something here?
Nope.
So one thing that we need to be aware of too is that Val has done an amazing job for all these years and won't be here forever.
Right.
And we're gonna,
That's not in the
it's
contract.
very unfortunate. But I just want her to hear on record that I believe personally that she is the best in the state. And for anyone to question her integrity is clearly someone that doesn't know her, because this woman has the integrity that all of us should strive for. So I just think that it's very unfortunate that you had to hear that, but you should hear about all the support, as I know you've heard today, that you have here in this county. And I will be in tears the day that you decide you're done. So thank you.
Yeah. And that's unified. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too.
You too.
And you're abandoning me.
Yeah.
Next up, non-listed items. Anything in the back? Just head nods. With that, we're adjourned.